You know, the West Coast is on right now. You know what I'm saying? Snoop about to drop. Snoop and Dre about to drop Missionary. Can't wait to hear that. Kendrick Lamar dropped today. You know what I'm saying? Pick that up, scoop that. The West Coast is winning right now, and it's a beautiful thing.
All right, welcome everybody to an episode of State of LA. We got a special episode for everybody. There's a lot of beef going around. There's a lot of heated feelings and emotions, but most of all, we like to chill out. We got to vibe, we do a West Coast style. So this is a special West Coast podcast edition of State of LA. Joining me as the usual suspects, we got Billy Delgado with us.
What up, what up?
And of course, we got Donald Potts.
Yo, what up?
I think I'm going to hand things over to Billy Delgado. All right, take it away.
All right, folks. So as Mike's mentioned, we're going to talk a lot of West Coast hip-hop that we grew up on. So first and foremost, let's kick it off with the West Coast Don himself, the Don Dada, the pyroclastic flow, Ice Cube. Ice Cube just released his 11th solo studio album. The last one was 2018, Everything is Corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it was more in your face, on reality based on cancel culture or things that is slowing us down as a society than progressing us. And the album cover is interesting in it in itself because we don't see Ice Cube in a cover. We just see a teenager walking on the sidewalk, and there's man down, there's an LAPD officer, there's lowrider, everything. So let's talk about this Ice Cube album, Man Down. And the first single that was released is It's My Ego. And It's My Ego, it felt like that Sunday movie he did with Mike Epps, because it takes place in the church. It was very comical, right? And it was one of those Ice Cube singles that doesn't disappoint. And it made your head nod. Yep. So any comments on the Man Down album?
Yeah, similar to you, man. I really love this album in terms of similar to what Billy was saying in the intro about kind of feeling like the West Coast that we grew up on. I think sonically, this album overall embodied that. A lot of G-Funk, a lot of those, West Coast G-Funk bass lines and drums and piano stabs. And it was really cool to hear that again. I feel like it's been a while since I've heard an album like that, especially because I know a lot of these guys now are older. A lot of that era, those rappers are kind of basically now known as like legacy artists. And it just kind of feels like, okay, like it's a sound that was reminiscent of that time, but it's not the sound of today, right? But it was really, really cool to see Ice Cube put out a project. Like Billy said, 6 years was the last one. And it felt like a West Coast 90s album to me, man. It kind of was nostalgic, even though it is a modern take on it. I feel like a lot of the stories, a lot of the themes are more modernized to today. Like I believe the cover has something to do with manhood and survival. It's like there's all these themes and messages where, like Cube doesn't really want to tell you what it is. You have to interpret that for yourself. And I mean, that just speaks to like Cube's style. Ice Cube has always been a socially political type dude from LA. He's always had these kind of themes. He's always had these kind of lyrics, right? Where he talks about things that are socio-political. And I think that it's just one of those things where he kind of reminded you that, yes, he's older and yes, he's in a different place in his life financially and everything, but he hasn't really gotten his ear off the street in terms of how society functions today. And I feel he probably just wanted to chime in and put his 2 cents on like, this is how I feel society is and what I feel needs to be seen in terms of this perspective needing to come in from me. And I really appreciated that. And I really appreciated it. I really loved the featured artists were really great too. Again, I think that this album to me was an album for people who were fans of Ice Cube growing up. And I love the fact that he put out something that was for us. Like if you notice, like, I don't know if there is a song, I can't recall of one that felt like, okay, this is something that the trap kids would like now. You know what I mean? I feel like this whole album was very, if you were a millennial, you already know. Like if you know, you know, as they say. So yeah, man, that was my thoughts on this album. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the features, man. I think we've been waiting for 30 years for Be Real and Ice Cube to be on a track together. It's been so long.
Yep.
And if you know your history, like Donald says, if you know, you know. There's a history between West Side Connection versus Cypress Hill.
Yep.
The whole background of that Friday soundtrack, the main single for the Friday soundtrack, the stealing of the hook and everything. And then they squashed the beef a couple years later.
Yep.
Both apologizing to each other, whatever. And then was Water Under the Bridge. And they came out in a movie with Mac 10, Big Pun, Fat Joe, Thicker Than Water. They were all in a movie together, which showed a lot of people visual that the beef was over.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, they go on a tour with Cypress Hill, the West Side Connection. And Cypress Hill, they went on a tour together, did a show together separately.
Mm-hmm.
But they were on that tour. And then now we get the collaboration between Be Real and Ice Cube, which is very awesome. And then also, as far for the lyricism, right? That Egomaniac. It's a remix to It's My Ego, but it has feature with Busta Rhymes and Killer Mike, which they both pay a lot of homage to Ice Cube in their own perspective way, which was really awesome. And then Finding Exhibit was on the album as well.
Yeah.
Corrupt Young Gotti was on the album. And Mike Epps making his usual appearance as the last couple albums in the past.
Yeah.
And then Mount Westmore, Snoop Dogg, 40 Water, and Too Short being on the album.
Yeah.
I think it had great cameos, great featuring, and the track list that came in together. One of the ones, here's an Eastern Head and Egg that I found out that maybe, like you said, Donald, kids nowadays will not know the 5150 track. To me, that was more of a Eazy-E, Ice Cube, like back in the day, because Eazy-E made a song called 5150 as this like EP, which was a follow-up to Eazy-E Boys in the Hood album.
Yeah.
And it was produced by Tretch from Naughty by Nature. And I can't believe he has this song too on the track. So it's great bringing that retrospect for where Ice Cube started from and bringing it in this album.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? What do you think of this album?
The album's dope, man. You know, take me back growing up being like a 90s kid, straight up listening to it, as Billy mentioned, those references. I feel like this is something that could have been on the Friday soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain moments that even took me back to like Dead President. It kind of had that, yeah, let's bring back a sound that we all grew up with and we all love. And yeah, that's all I have to really say about it. You know, Donald and Billy are the true hip hop experts here. You know, I'm more of a fan of just the music in general. And yeah, it's definitely something definitely got to go back to.
No, exactly, dude.
And digest. As you're going to find, there's a lot of music that dropped in a short window. So we have more thoughts on other things than others. But yeah, I definitely like the album. And just the features like Egomaniacs, which a remix, It's My Ego. I think those are the two headliner tracks, and I'm glad he put those out first. And it's definitely something I'd want to keep listening to. Going further through the listing, yeah, just his commentary on trolls on the internet and stuff, and just giving his thoughts of various things happening today. You know, being more of a older veteran in the industry, his thoughts on what kids are resonating with, and I feel like he definitely had like the pulse on everything going on socially. And yeah, I definitely want to dive back in and see what the little, you know, nuggets of gold are still in there.
Yeah, to your point, I think that was the one thing I got out of it, especially after the first listen, which is like, okay, Cube knows his sound and he knows the sound that he wants, and he's just going to put it out there. Again, it sounded very 90s in terms of sonically, but I loved it because it's what I grew up on. I think the only song that I kind of felt like, okay, I don't know where this fits, but I also feel like, well, whatever, it's Ice Cube and he's going to do it was Especially You, because I know he had a sample. It was like a freestyle track.
Yeah, everybody is report to the dance floor.
Yeah, like obviously he was trying to do like a party track.
Ladies, get your ass shaking, blah, blah, blah.
But I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. But it's also like, whatever. At this point, like he had done so many good songs that it's fine. When I think of Ice Cube party tracks, I think of like You Can Do It or like the Players Club one, you know? It's like, I don't know. I think something like that probably would have served better, but again, I know it's kind of interesting, and I know we'll probably talk about another freestyle track that got sampled in another project that we're going to talk down the road, but it reminded me of that. It's like, is there something in the air where we're like revisiting freestyle music?
Me being a fan of Ice Cube, I think that reminds me of him going to Dudo's with MC Ren, DJ Yella, and Dr. Dre. Dudo's. It was a club where Dr. Dre used to work at with the World Class Wrecking Crew, and he had his big hit right there. So I think he smashed it, you know, based on his early upcomings where he had to pay a lot of his dues.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people don't know that history, that like that style of hip hop in the 80s, like that breakdancing style of music that was hip hop back then. It had its own moment, right? Then of course things take a turn once NWA comes out, because now gangster rap becomes the sound of hip hop. But yeah, I remember even seeing that movie, was it Breakin'? Ice-T's in it, and he does a freestyle over the breakdancing music, and it's like, yeah, you forget these dudes before they became gangster rappers, they were trying to see if they could blow up in the breaking scene type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, you're just trying to figure out what's the gimmick that's going to help you get ahead in life. And it was cool. That's the only reason why I kind of wasn't too down on it. It just felt a little off when I first heard it, but I also felt like, nah, I mean, if you think about it, this was the thing that I'm sure influenced them to even start getting into music to begin with, right? And then sometimes it's just that you get into it, and then next thing you know, you're writing rhymes in your notebook, and next thing you know, your friend DJ becomes a producer, and now he's making the beats for you. And then you have another friend that comes in and joins and finances everything, and then you have a group going, and that group blows up, and NWA comes out of that. So yeah, to your point, Billy, that makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, there's a link there, you know, for Ice Cube in terms of that style, that track, that beat, and just everything. But it was kind of cool to see like him trying to do like a party track in the middle of this big political, social album.
Yeah.
Like Mike was saying, I did catch the trolling parts and the trolling lines and stuff. And, you know, just how aware he is of the internet. I'm sure he thinks of it as like, this is such a fake place. I'm sure he tried to put that in the album. That was part of the messaging. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like classic California album is anything that you can see yourself bumping while you're driving down the PCH is the way to go. Or are you sitting in 405 traffic? This is the kind of album you want to have with you on your playlist. And unfortunately, it got overshadowed, and we'll get into what might have led to that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's definitely an album worth checking out and highly recommend.
For sure, man.
Now, let's go move on with the Dogfather himself, the Death Row CEO, the guy that hangs out with Martha Stewart. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Snoop D-O-G. He just released his 20th studio album, Missionary, a follow-up to the Doggy Style album, his fourth album under Death Row Records. It went Doggy Style, Dogfather, back on Death Row, and now Missionary. Everything was else in between. He's back with the great Dr. Dre. And Dr. Dre is on the beats, smashing it, hitting it. With this album, it all started last year, where them kicking off and promoting the gin and juice drink. Because if you go back, and we're going to talk about the short film later, if you go back to that commercial and connect it with the short film, things started making sense. So, Donald, what was your perspective on this Missionary album that took a lot of years in the making, and especially for Dr. Dre, the D-O-G, like getting back together?
Yeah, according to Dr. Dre on Drink Champs, he said it was supposed to be a 2-week thing, and it turned out to be longer because Snoop had all these endorsement deals that he had to do, and he always had a commercial to film, and Dre was getting frustrated with him for not being as musically focused as Dre would be. But knowing Dre, that's just who he is. It's like that dude's like a studio rat. So it's just interesting to see that. But it's funny because Missionary, I honestly like the album. I think that it was a fun listen in contrast to Ice Cube's, where it was very politically, socially charged, and he's doing a lot of social commentary. Like Snoop is the complete opposite. So the way you see him in interviews, like, you know, smoking a lot of weed and just answering a lot of questions and telling a lot of stories. I felt like Missionary was like that. Like it was just kind of like a fun album. Like you put it on, that beginning track had like similar feelings to like the 2001 Chronic, where it has like a THX type of intro. And then you know, as a BJ the Chicago Kid had amazing vocals to kind of start off the album. And I think he ends it with Snoop Dogg makes the world go round. And it just felt like they're teeing it up for like a cinematic experience. You know, of course, Dr. Dre says you're about to witness the strength of street knowledge, even though I feel like him and Snoop are very wealthy. I don't know how street they are, but it's kind of tough to see that. But at the same time, too, like, it's just funny seeing Dre and Snoop do the callback. It's like, oh, I don't think you guys thought that through, but all right, whatever. We let a lot slide because at the end of it, you're strapping in for a ride, and it's a cool ride. The production is amazing. I think that's like the biggest thing that everyone said. And even for me, even when I first heard it, I'm like, man, this is a really bright album. Everything's like just really in your face in terms of production value. Everything sounds clean and polished. You can hear everybody clearly coming in. Janae Aiko's track is great. I think she and Snoop did a good job on that one. And yeah, man, it was just really, really good. I had a lot of fun listening to it. Everything from even the features as well are great too. I think Method Man, to me, had the best verse. Kind of something that I was talking about in the group chat with you guys. I've already listened to his album like 5 times, and it's growing on me in different ways. That was one of them. In the first listen, I was like, oh, damn, Eminem killed it, right? Because it's Eminem, is what he does, you know? So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, was he holding back on this feature? Because I feel like he could have gone further, but at the same time, too, it's Eminem and it's Snoop and it's 50 Cent, too. So it's okay. It's his friends. He doesn't really need to prove anything, right? But then around the fourth, fifth listen, I don't know, man. I just felt like, man, like Method Man really did good.
Yeah.
I like his verse a lot more now. If I had to like rank it, I think I had him 2 and Eminem 1, but now I'm switching it. I think Method Man had 1. So I just thought that was really cool. And I think it was really cool to hear Snoop rap.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was rapping rap. It was really cool. But overall, fun listen. Even the way he ended it, I thought it was a really good with Negotiator. I thought that was a really good song, a really good way to conclude the whole album. It was him reminiscing and letting the audience how far he's gone in terms of his career and just how he can kind of bring it if he needs to and stuff. I liked it. I liked the album for what it was. And it was a fun album. It's a fun listen. The production's great. It definitely has the makings of like Snoop Dogg doing a tiny desk to it because of how much instrumentation there is. And it all sounds live. It sounds like a really live instrumentation throughout. And I think even if Snoop were to tour with this album, I think he could actually do this with a live band behind him. It kind of lends itself to that. But yeah, man, I think it was good. I think it was a good listen. I think the artwork really reflected not so much the visual, like the condom being something that obviously is like a sequel to Doggy Style, but I think the artwork being the black and the gold is kind of like very luxury feel to it, made me feel like, oh, damn, this does sound like a luxury house style album. Like if you were to go to Rodeo Drive, you know what I mean? This is kind of what you're getting. It's not street in terms of like, it's not like grimy Long Beach stuff. It's Snoop and Dre affluent style. That's what I liked. So I think there was nothing wrong with that for me. I don't think where they're at in their careers and where they're at and how much people know them, I don't think it would have worked if it was going to be something that wasn't them. And I think this is who they are and where they're at in their life and their careers. And I think it was great. It was a fun listen. I had so much fun listening to it.
Yeah, no doubt. And add to what you were saying, even Snoop said it, I think it was in Drink Champs, right? Where he's saying sometimes it's streets, sometimes it's sweets. So they had to like kind of balance because like with Doggy Style, it was party, get interrupted by gunshots, party again, and handle your business. This is streets, right? But it wasn't on this album. I think you hit it right on the nose because when you become grown folks like Dre and Snoop, you really want to have fun. Yeah. You leave that stuff in the past and make the music and the product for what it is, just to make it shine, to make it grow. For Dre to even say, yo, I haven't had this much fun since 30 years ago when I did Doggy Style with him, and now I even sound better. And I was like, well, you know, over the years, Dre had to invest a lot on the instrumental and be a producer, work with other producers as well, having an ear out for new sound, new sonic waves, how the time has changed and how to adapt to the modern time. And with Dre beats, it lives forever. There's no timestamp on the music. And that's just longevity that Dr. Dre is. And like how you mentioned earlier, Snoop Dogg thought that in 2 weeks this was going to taken care of. I think 2 weeks is only one song to perfect if you're working with Dr. Dre. So like that was cool. And I went to my Apple Music and I searched Dre, and it's under Dr. Dre too as his discography, which I was surprised. I'm like, oh, I get it. He's on the beat, but like he's on the beats and he's on a couple of songs, but okay, it's considered a Dr. Dre album, I guess, too.
No, it's true. That's how it is on Spotify. It says Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, and it's like I'm assuming they just wanted to go 50-50 on the credit. So
yeah, and then also with this production, let's go back to Dr. Dre's, 2015 Compton-inspired album. From the movie. And it was an album, not a soundtrack. It was actual album. People are like, oh man, the G-Funk wasn't present, right? Because it was too theatrical as well, like you mentioned it for this album. Yeah. However, if you go back to the GTA soundtrack and some of the hits he had with Busta Rhymes, Snoop Dogg, Anderson .Paak, and Eminem, I was like, you know what? This sounds so much better than he did on the Compton album. And I thought people were going to expect G-Funk all over again. Yeah. But my expectation was like, man, just give me some beats that sound like that GTA soundtrack. Yeah. And we're good to go. My expectations came correct. So like, I was a happy fan through all,
Yeah, no, of course. And I feel like if people really wanted G-Funk, that would probably be Man Down.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do sonically with that style. Like, I mean, you can only go so far with it because if you start to, do more, then it's no longer that. I know all three of us kind of share the sentiment about art in terms of understanding that, certain styles are certain styles. And if you try to somehow bring that 20 years later, it's still gonna sound like that. That's how I feel about boom bap. Like I love boom bap rap and I love making boom bap beats, but I do get it. Like I'll play a beat that I'll make to just a random person. It could be here at my day job and they would legit think that this is from like the 90s. yeah, you can't make it anything better than that. If you do, then you're kind of taking it away from that. It has to be that. Like, I don't want to feel like any styles getting disrespected or anything like that. I feel like those styles are those styles. Like right now, maybe not right now, but I know for a couple of years behind, probably a little bit before COVID, like trap beats that came from Atlanta were a thing, and that's that style.
Mm-hmm.
To say, I don't know, if 20 years from now, Future or something doesn't put out an album from now till then, till 20 years from now, and it doesn't have that trap style, are people going to be like, oh, dude, Future didn't do it as a trap thing? Like, no, you can't do it. Whatever that sound is in 20 years, he's probably going to do that because there's a part of it where he feels he's going to want to evolve and grow from the style that blew him up. And that's just for any artist. That's just how that is. I think Eminem's the best example of how to evolve. I remember when I first heard Eminem rap over trap beats, I'm like, damn, I think I like trap beats now. He really made you feel like you can be a super lyrical, miracle whipple, all that stuff. You could do all that chopper flow, double entendres, quadruple entendres, and make it sound dope. Like, because we always associated trap beats to like the mumble thing. And then here comes Eminem and says, dude, you can actually use the same production and make your rap sound dope as hell and really rap on this thing. And he kind of proved that. It's like, okay, well, no, I don't really hate trap production like that. It's more palatable to me. So, you know what I mean? It's just what it is. So, yeah, to your point, Billy, yes. It would have been dope to see G-Funk Dre, but, you know, it doesn't sound like this is where he's at in his life. Snoop looks like he's open to anything. And I know Billy was talking about the 2-week thing. I mean, once you see Dre having Snoop do all these takes because it's not perfect to him, I'm sure 2 weeks isn't enough for like an album. Unless you're going to like be there like 24/7. But I feel like it's just one of those things where you got to understand where people are at in life. I think this is what's been cool about hearing these guys on podcasts. Hearing Ice Cube's interview on Big Boy and the TikTok live that he did, and then Snoop on Dre on the Drink Champs, and then they did the Complex interview. It helps kind of provide context of where they're at and why the music sounds the way it sounds. Then it doesn't get too critical because at the end of the day, it's just music, and then we're just fans and we listen to it and we love it. And unless it's super terrible where you know it's like, damn, this is like the worst thing ever, sometimes you can tell when there's an overall consensus about that. And I think so far with these albums that we've talked about, there hasn't been that much in terms of like overall, unless you're super young. If you're like my nephew who's in high school, probably goes over your head that these 2 albums even came out. But yeah, but even then, like an example would be like 808 and Heartbreaks by Kanye. I remember when that thing came out, people were like, dude, this is not the Kanye I like. This is not the Kanye da 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 da. And now people like praise 808 and Heartbreaks. Like there's like a revisionist history on that album because now people are like, oh, dang, him talking about his emotions and being open about everything from losing his mother to his girlfriend leaving him and just being this guy who like has his heart in his sleeve. It's like all of a sudden all these other rappers are doing it and they're like, oh, now it makes sense. And Kanye was doing it back then, but like he wasn't given praise for it. And now it makes all sense that he's doing all this stuff, you know? And now when he puts Donda out, it's like, oh, damn, even more stuff that they like. So
yeah, and this whole campaign even started when Dre got his start at the Walk of Fame. They went to the Jimmy Kimmel show. They kind of announced it there, right?
Yeah.
And then from there on, it just started picking up. And then the whole Gin and Juice thing, and then Eminem dropping the Death of Slim Shady album. And then they're like, hey, you know, you want to do the Gin and Juice thing in the UK? All right, cool. This campaigned it there. And then all the podcasts, all the shows you mentioned just now, Donald, it's just a big campaign.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like a press run that they go on. You know what I mean? Which I know we haven't got into that yet. But of course, we recently found out a couple days ago that they reported their first week numbers for Missionary, and unfortunately it doesn't look good for them, which I'm sad for them. I'm sad for them because I know it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of hours that they put in the studio to really make this album the way they wanted it to sound, to really give it to fans. And it just kind of sucks to see that, you know, the fans didn't show up. It almost feels like the 2024 election for the Democrats, where it's like, where were you guys? How come you guys didn't vote this way or whatever? Yeah, it just feels like for whatever reason, the audience spoke and they felt like it wasn't worth their time. And it sucks because I love these guys. I look up to them and I think that it just sucks. But like, hopefully as time passes by, maybe people give this album a chance and really, really appreciate what these guys did because I thought it was a good listen. I thought it was a fun listen. There's songs that I like that I definitely will play more than others, but it was a really eclectic too overall. Like it was a really eclectic rap album.
Yeah, and there was no skips for me. Even though we live in the streaming services era, right? And for sales and whatnot, I mean, these guys used to push sound scans. Yeah. They used to be in the top Billboard 100. And, you know, and they have iconic albums and they have a pretty dope resume. So for them to be worried about these numbers, you know, they already have a longevity. So hopefully they're not really tripping on it. So I doubt it that they are, you know.
Yeah, there's that other consensus where they're like, yeah, we don't really need the money. So they're like,
Exactly.
whatever. But my whole thing was just, well, I don't want it to be seen as only this certain amount of people listen to it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess as a fan, I'm just kind of like, oh man, I wish more people kind of gave it a chance. You know, because again, like anything, streaming podcast, streaming albums, streaming songs, streaming on YouTube, Instagram, it is time consuming. Sometimes we subconsciously think about like what's worth our time. So that was just my 2 cents on it as far as the return on it. But again, to your point, they're very wealthy, so I doubt they need the money and they could care less. But at the same time, sometimes it feels good to have that buzz or to have people be like, damn, like these guys still got it. Or the freaking award people, Billboard, Grammys kind of give you the nod, you know, it just makes you feel appreciated. I get what I'm more into in terms of like what I'm trying to lay down. But yeah, man. How about you, Mike?
Oh man, and the Snoop project was great. I think we all had a great time watching the press run, as you guys mentioned that they were on. Yeah, Snoop is just such a household name. You know, him and Martha are like the dynamic duo, Batman and Robin of the cooking space and just anything, just make money, just make business. And I think it almost throws people off. It almost reminds me of speaking of younger generations and just going back to like Method Man.
Yeah.
My cousin loved How High.
Yeah, man. That was
and
my
that
jam.
film. And he always forgets that he's like, what? He's a rapper? You know? Because sometimes you just
They're both rappers.
yeah, him and Redman in that film, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just become a brand and you become a
Yeah.
household name, you become like a family name. So when you hear Snoop coming out with the album called Missionary and it's a condom rapper on the cover, he's
Yeah.
going back and jumping N bombs, F bombs, whatever have you. And you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, this guy used to do gangster rap. You know?
Yeah.
When it comes to the albums that we're talking about in this podcast, I always think of it as eras of the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about Ice Cube being like the 90s. And to me, Dre is his own genre. Dre is his own style. And to me, it's always timeless. You know, I think we could always think of our favorite Dre produced track and just play it now. It still holds up.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like you're taking a time machine. It feels like it's always current, always relevant. And we all on agreement, you know, the production was amazing. You know, you listen to every track and it's so layered, so well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
Snoop talks about violins and then you get like a string of violins being played, you know.
Yeah.
He pays attention to all the small minor details that we highly value and appreciate. But at the same time, you tune into Joe Budden podcast and you have people on there saying it's not grimy enough. They're almost thinking that they want to hear old Snoop. Let's take a time machine to when Snoop was known as one of the go-to gangster rappers of his time during the height of like the West Coast, East Coast beef and all of that.
Yeah.
That's still an image that some people have of Snoop, which that's not where he is today. And I know us as fans of the music, of just artists continuing to do what they do way into the later years, we don't care. Age is just a number as far as we're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you can get in the booth, continue to do what you do, we will continue to support it and love it if we like it, you know. And all of us are in agreement. We like the album. I love the singles. Him doing that song with Sting was amazing. Hearing that story is incredible. You know, they just hit up Sting just to get approval to use a sample, and Sting's like, no, I'm on the track. And seeing them perform on The Voice, I thought that was fire. I love that song. Of course, doing a joint with Jelly Roll, Last Dance with Mary Jane. That's a dope track.
Yeah.
I told you guys in the group chat, yo, that song comes on, I have it looping for like 5-10 times. You know, something about, you know, give me like a nice Spanish guitar string riff and I'm like, let's go. You know, there's a lot of solid tracks on that album. Of course, having 50 and M on a track is always dope. There's also Gunsmoke and reference to Notorious B.I.G. sample on that track. So there's a lot of dope samples on that album that we all can appreciate the callbacks, and that's classic hip hop too, as far as some of us are concerned, incorporating those samples. And I feel like there's so much in there that older hip hop heads can appreciate. Yeah, hopefully in retrospect, like you mentioned, like 808s and Heartbreaks, hated that album when it came out, but after a while learned to appreciate it. And in retrospect, I do think it did a lot of things for music to move the needle. I know part of the reason, and we'll get into that in a bit, is there was just a lot of dust in the air, a lot of other things that were taking up people's attention where this album didn't get the just due that it deserved. And yeah, hopefully in later years, in retrospect, of course, Snoop's like, yo, man, I'm on to the next. He's got so many projects lined up, so many endorsement deals, so many things he's got in the works that I know he's so positive. He has his head up. I know we were concerned about how he may feel about it, but I know he's like, yo, man, we just keep it moving. It's all about love. Keep it going. Snoop's going to do what he does. Yeah, but definitely, if you have a moment, definitely peep out Missionary, man. Sometimes it is the best position. But anyway, moving on.
Man, this should be considered the main event of tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Kendrick Lamar, aka K Dot, aka Kung Fu Kenny, has dropped and released his sixth studio album on November 22nd.
Yep.
Surprise! Same day Ice Cube dropped Man Down. It was a surprise album, his first album as a artist under his own label, PG Lang. He's no longer under Top Dog Entertainment nor Aftermath Entertainment. And it's a trip to see Kenny going without Dr. Dre on this one. But I gotta say, he straight killed it on his first solo album. And to me, Kendrick Lamar, when he was signed to Dr. Dre, like what, 12 years ago or so, like
Yeah.
I consider him the first non-gangster rapper under Dr. Dre, next to Eminem, but from the West Coast.
Mhm.
So which was surprising because like we needed that longevity as well. We needed that mark. Not everything in LA is too gangster, but like we needed someone lyrical from Compton like Kendrick is to take the torch and to light up the West Coast for what it is. So yeah, let's talk about GNX. And Donald, man, you're the one who hit us up with the surprise tweets right off the way. You hit us up with the link. I was like, what is Donald talking about? I'm pressing buttons here. Yeah. And then I hear the Dodger Blues song and I'm like, what is going on? I'm confused. And then you said it's a surprise album. And I had to make more research and I had to listen that album from cover to cover.
Yeah.
All right, Donald, take us to your experience and how was that like?
Yeah. So GNX came out. It was Friday morning. I was at work. Mm-hmm. And similar to you, someone messaged me. I believe it was my buddy JV that sent me the Instagram everything. In my mind, I'm like, okay, it's like a teaser for something, right? But then he messaged like, no, it's an album. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And then I'm at work and I'm like, oh, I can't play it because I'm at my job and it's a radio station. I got to listen to the radio, not what I want to listen to. I saw the group chat. Billy was just basically giving us his first thoughts on it, which I was like, oh man, I was getting jealous. I was like, oh, he's already listened to it. I haven't hit play. And then at the same time too, because this was an official album release, I kind of was like, I don't want to do the thing where I'm listening to it and I'm half paying attention because I'm doing other stuff as well. I was like, no, this is Kendrick, especially with the year he's had, right? 2024, the beef. Not like us. Obviously, he's garnered my attention to the point where I'm like, I have to be doing nothing but listening to this if I'm going to listen. Like, at most, I have to be walking somewhere or being on like a treadmill or go for a walk or something because I can't be listening to it while also like doing other stuff that will take my attention as well. Just because when you started sending us little lyrics and little things that were getting to you, like things that you were catching, I was like, oh man. This is Kung Fu Kenny, man. He does this all the time where he puts all these messages and just like his whole wordplay is just insane. And you got to listen to it so you could appreciate it. But then finally I got off work and then I went to the gym and that really was my playlist with my whole gym session that day. Obviously, the first time I'm playing it, I'm more paying attention to production and just like how the album's flowing in terms of like song to song, how it sounds sonically. I hadn't really dove into the lyrics yet or in terms of what is he trying to say, you know? So obviously the first one when he comes in with whacked out murals, it was very dramatic, very intense, a little bit of that dramatic vibe to it. You know, it's kind of dark. And then when Squabble Up hits, I was like, oh, shoot, he finally put out the full version of the teaser for Not Like Us in the music video, which was Squabble Up. He like teases it in the Not Like Us music video. But I'm like, oh, damn. Now we're hearing the whole thing. So I had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, man, I thought it was great. I remember also the next day was the LA Galaxy game playoffs in Carson, California. I had ticket to go to the match. I walk into the stadium and they're bumping the album already. And this is like the day after it's released. They're bumping up Squabble Up. They're bumping up Whacked Out Murals. And then they're bumping TV Off. And you're just like, oh, damn, he really made a mark. And then, of course, TV Off, I think, is kind of like the song that wasn't an official single release from him, but like the internet made it a single release because of all the mustard memes and just like how every company got in on it. Like McDonald's was clever with the hot mustard of their sauce. And you couldn't escape it. You couldn't run away from this song because everybody was on it. So, man, you just felt like, oh, dang, you know, not only did Kendrick win this rap battle and put up LA like this and made LA the place to be, and then you sprinkle on the Dodgers winning the World Series, it just poured it on. It was just like these layers coming in of LA ripple effect throughout the nation about the music, everything that's coming out. So, yeah, man, it was hard to escape this album. I felt like you had to listen to it. And honestly, 44 minutes and 20 seconds of no skips. I love all the songs he did with SZA. I think the way him and SZA work together is amazing.
Give us more. Yeah, no, I agree. Give us more.
I kind of want an album from them as a duo now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He really utilizes her really, really well. It was really good. Again, to your point with Kendrick, obviously him being with Dr. Dre helped a lot in terms of brand wise, like getting his brand out there and having people hear him. But I think one of the most refreshing things of him with his success as an artist is the fact that Kendrick represented those kids growing up in the hood that just didn't join a gang, but they know everything about that life, or they know everything about that world. Even if they're kind of considered an outsider within that, they kind of were close enough to tell those stories and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what separates him a little bit from the previous generation. Looking back at it now with Ice Cube, maybe even Dr. Dre, if you want to put him in that category, Warren G and stuff, that era of rappers coming up were guys that didn't join gangs, right? Similar to Kendrick. But their perception in terms of how listeners viewed them is that they probably were a gangbanger at some point, right? Because of the fact that they even named the new music gangster rap. So you just kind of automatically felt like, oh, these guys are gangsters, right? But they weren't, because they weren't initiated in a gang. Not like how Snoop was, not like how Mac 10 and all them guys. So then Kendrick comes in 20 plus years later, and then he kind of represents that same era, which is why I think even Ice Cube says it in his album, I Was Kendrick Before Kendrick, because Kendrick was similar to Ice Cube in that regard of not a gang member, but everybody in his listenership knows it already. You know what I mean? It's like he's not pretending to be something he's not. But even with that said, like you could tell he has friends in those circles, and then he's very well respected. So I think that was the thing about Kendrick that worked so well throughout his career, is that you felt like he was Compton. He figured out how to embody the artwork of his music in it and stuff like that and tell those stories. He's a great storyteller, man. So to me, this is what separates him and why every time he puts stuff out, people listen. He's able to do it, and he's very relatable to a lot of us that grew up in these neighborhoods. When you walked out the store or something and there was a tagged up wall from a gang, you're like a Kendrick. That's how that upbringing is like. You see it, but you're not in it, you're not of it type of thing. You know what I mean? So it's really cool. And I think Kendrick does a good job of really putting that together in songs, and he has all of us hooked on it.
I definitely agree. And Donald, as you were mentioning about how, you wanted this full attention to get on the album, I texted you right away, man, just take the 110 right after work, head south. There's going to be bumper to bumper traffic. By the time you get home, you'll be done with the album, But yeah, man, I was very impressed with this great body of work from Kendrick. And I was just mentioning this to a relative just the other day, that I do consider Kendrick as one of the best storytellers of our time right now. Because I told him in Section 80, he told a story. Good Kid, Mad City, he told a story. To Pimp a Butterfly, he told another story. Damn, it feels like he held us to a wall. He told us another story. And then Mr. Morale, High Stepper, he told us a different story, how us as men that either grew up with a father and how to treat our women and give women a break, all that, he told us a story one way or another, it didn't even fail. So I hope there's more to come with him, SZA. And now the tour is kicking off this summer. There's going to be back-to-back shows him in Toronto. So that's going to be a great take. A lot of people in Toronto, the DJs, are like, yeah, we're not going to give free tickets for Kendrick. You could go to the local box office, buy it your own. We're not going to give any free tickets. We're going to do that, blah, 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 I guess to the turf of what's going on over there, This is one of the albums I really like. I'm going to up there with Good Kid, Mad City, Damn.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then this one. Now I have like 3 favorite Kendrick albums.
It's in your top 3 of Kendrick.
Most definitely. And I like how he opened up with Heartbeat Part 6. I like how he dove in more on the TDE family, right? Especially J-Rock being his day one kind of guy. Which I've been listening to J-Rock since 2009. So I've been on the J-Rock band since 2009. Not too late, not too early kind of days. And then I like Reincarnated. Once I heard the instrumental right off the bat, I had to text you guys like, damn, he sampled Pac on this one. He didn't fail. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, where did I hear this beat from, Because Tupac had a lot of unreleased albums. And then I found out it was from the movie, I think it's called Gang Related, from that film.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of corrupted cop, but he's not a corrupted cop, but he's with Belushi, who is the corrupted cop, and he's trying to set things straight to make things right. And he has the Outlaws on it. on that song, and it was a soundtrack for Death Row Records. So that one in Gridlock. So I was like, dang, dude, that was pretty dope. I like how he sampled on that one. It hit home with those two songs, you know. And then fun fact, a lot of people had to sign a lot of NDAs, especially the artists that were featured in this album, to the people that appeared in the Squabble Up video. People in the Squabble Up video, they didn't know they were in a Kendrick video. They just played the beat, they were dancing, they were doing their thing, whatever. And that's why Kendrick appeared to be awkward in his own video, because they had to space him in. Then later when it was released, you know, Kendrick gave everybody their props, their thanks, their flowers for showing up and appearing on that video. You know, and being team sports about it, not asking too much questions. Dude, they're getting paid pretty good figures every time that video is played on YouTube. They're getting paid pretty well. You know, and now people could talk about, I did not know that Kendrick was going to sit me down in the studio, have me write some lyrics and say, you got another one in you? And this is one of the memes that was going off the internet, aside the mustard one, was Kendrick sits on a couch, not like butt to seat, but like where your back rests. You know, where you take a seat, his feet is right there. And they're like, dude, this is like the Batman of hip hop now. Like, you know, like he is making sure you're here to deliver, you know, and making sure that he is recognizing you as an artist, and you're making the Justice League of hip hop, and you're delivering to that microphone because you're going to be part of a creative masterpiece. And not only that, after people started getting interviewed for this, like saying, how is it working with Kendrick? It's that 101, like respect, like, yeah, how you been? Shaking hands. How you doing? You know, acknowledging people where they're at and saying, yeah, that's why I called you. People were talking to me about you, blah, blah, blah. Right. And he had some Latino rappers that are from around the way in Los Angeles that appeared in this album. Right. So even the singer from Whacked Up Mirrors who did the intro, she did the national anthem at a Dodger game at the World Series.
Yeah, at the World Series. Game 2, I think it was.
And then Kendrick was on it. Boom. Brought it to the studio, signed his NDA. Sing that song one more time. But do it in Spanish. You don't have to do it in English. Do it in Spanish. Whoa. That is crazy. That is crazy. Like, So this is great masterpiece. Mike, what you think about it? What was your take on this?
Oh, man. I feel like I lived this album like a whole month, bro. Shout out to all the reaction channels who do breakdowns, man. I always got to turn to Knox Hill, Screwface, Crip, a bunch of guys who just, because he's on level Eminem, bro. You need like a doctorate. This is someone's thesis breaking down his album. Talking about storytelling, going back to the tracks you meant, the Hard Part 6, giving us more insight into like how he came up and things he had to go through, you know, disregarding what Drake did, you know, and saying like, nah, we're going to forget about that. This is the real Hard Part 6. Referring back to the battle they had earlier this year, and then going into Reincarnated. Man, this man going through and saying for generations, I was the greatest. Reincarnated, I just did it again and again. And then to have that conversation with God at the end, reminding you that Kendrick is always something deeper in his music and his lyrics. It's not surface level. He wants you to be reflective. He wants you to grow as a person and be a better person for listening to his music. So on so many levels, Kendrick is goated. And there's a reason why he's been the conversation the entire year. And that's why, you know, be playing at the halftime show next year for the Super Bowl. And yeah, man, it's an album that I just kept reviewing, kept listening to, you know, how to make my own little meme with the mustard thing. You just had to do it, man. It was everywhere and rightfully so. Yeah, turn your TV off, man. Just bump the music instead. It was just fire. I know there's much anticipation. So many hints in that Squall of Love video about a potential double album. So many rumors and speculation, even potentially a leaked track. So we're still heavily anticipating more music from Kendrick. I know that's something I kind of threw in the group chat. I'm like, yo, man, he's going on this tour, this epic stadium tour with SZA. Definitely going to be sold out shows for that. Like you said, every track he did with SZA on this album was fire. And they went ahead and did 30 for 30 on SZA's new album.
It's a deluxe version of SOS.
Re-release of that album, deluxe version. And once again, we're just like, dang. Even though everyone's trying to say, nah, it's just a general statement. He's just trying to call out people in general. Like, no, this is another Drake diss. Even the name 30 for 30, we're like, no, that's referencing Drake. I guess he put out like a track. I don't know, it's like the name of the track or something he says 30 for 30. And we're all saying like, yo, man, they should just make an album. And maybe at the end of their tour, maybe that's what we can expect. You know, maybe it's just going to be a Kendrick SZA album and they're just recording the album during the tour. We're all foaming at the mouth for more Kendrick music. So that's dope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. No, and if you remember, dude, they put that song together for the Black Panther soundtrack. All the stars, man. Well, I mean, sure, I think they did something on her first album with TDE, but it was like, you kind of felt like, oh man, these two can really put something together. And given that one of them's an R&B singer and the other one's a rapper, they just had this insane chemistry, man. You haven't seen something like that in a while.
Yeah, so it's exciting, man. I mean, Kendrick was the talk of 2024. I feel like he's still going to be the conversation going into next year. Because Super Bowl is like what, February, March?
In February, yeah. I think my estimation would be the first quarter of 2025 is probably when we still talk about him. And then depending on whether he puts new music out or not, it'll probably fizz out after that first quarter. I did see that, and I know this is something else that we're talking about now, but just real quick, I did see that like The Weeknd is already promoting his new album for next year that's coming out like around summer. And I think it's coming out with a movie. Like it's a movie with an album attached to it.
Wow.
So in my mind, I'm like, oh, dude, obviously other people are also trying to get in on who's going to take the attention after Kendrick.
Oh man, yeah, doesn't Drake have a new project coming out early 2025 also?
Yeah, we don't care.
I don't know about that, man.
No, I mean, the funny part is I have friends that are Drake fans. They're mainly female, but I feel bad because you could tell they like still want to listen to him and not feel weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't want to get hated on for it, which they shouldn't be. But it's just like one of the things where it's like, come on, like right now it's not the time. Just keep it in your earbuds. Don't tell us you're listening. I'm just playing. No, but yeah, I mean, at some point Drake's gonna come out and have a rebound. Yeah, he just has to kind of know that he took the L and that's it. I mean, you got to just kind of move on and whatever your next move is, just do that. But it's gonna be a while because people are always gonna remind him right now of what happened.
I mean, there's country. He could pick up a harmonica. He could pick up a banjo. Honestly, he could bring back as Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. He could make that cool again, you know? There's a lot of potential in there for him to come up with another album that it won't disappoint. Even though we're clowning this guy, Aubrey, he knows how to press the right buttons, dude. So regardless of the rap battle or the beef or whatever, you know, he's going to press the right button. And once he press it, his followers are going to continue to be his followers. And that's it. Like, there's nothing going to be taken away.
Yeah.
Regardless. I don't think so. And this is LA guys talking to the dude that trying to humiliate our man. But, you know, whatever. I think you're going to press the right button, create new music, even though we're clowning about the banjo and harmonic and the country music. Like, he's going to do something right for him. That's all right.
I was watching the Billboard Music Awards. Shabuzi tore it up, you know? Country's big. Drake can always go ahead, file another petition.
Yeah. Why not? Jelly Roll's winning, you know?
Yeah. Where were you Jelly Roll fans on the Snoop album?
What a year to really end with music. A lot of West Coast. I honestly haven't seen this since 1999. And even though Eminem is not a West Coast artist, but it brought me back in the day. Like, I can't believe the Slim Shady LP came out in 99. Then the Top Dog No Limit album came out. And the 2001 album came out. And it felt like this. And Snoop and Kendrick. So it made me feel like, you know, that 13-year-old kid bumping a CD on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, man.
And then asking you, Donna, it's like, hey, you're listening to that album? Can I borrow it now? Yeah, man. Just don't bring it back with scratches, all right? And I was like, yeah, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. Yeah, and then Donald would figure out a way to get me a copy. I was like, all right, man, there you go. I gave you like 2-3 copies. I should keep you inside the house for listening to that album on repeat whenever you want. I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, man, great way to close the year, regardless of the results, you know. And I don't know if you guys knew, but Ice Cube, he did a TikTok breakdown of each and every track for that new album. And we already discussed about Missionary and the high road that took. And GNX, there's a lot of TikTokers that break down on the double or triple entendres in the album. This is like what I really, even people that are not TikTok famous, but they still say, hey, you know what, like we bump Dodger Blue a lot because we love LA. And for all the people who are transplants or people who just moved out here, pretend to love LA, this ain't your scene. We still love our city more than anything now, you know, and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, dude. It was a renaissance for Los Angeles for sure.
Yeah, I think right now Mike is going online trying to get a couple of mustard t-shirts for sure. I'll put that on his wish list.
Most definitely.
But yeah,
All
man.
right, man. That was a good podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like, subscribe, and continue to follow us on socials. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check out the next one.
All right. Peace.
Later.